In the last few years, there have been so many policy changes regarding real estate, and many of the accessories industries of real estate as well as infrastructure have been affected by it. Today, we have with us Asok Kularia from A&J Group of Architects. Thank you so much for being with us, Mr. Kularia. First of all, can you tell us, what do you think in today's, how is the today's real estate as well as urban infrastructure projects and the industry developing? Specifically to tell you how not just about real estate but also about infrastructure projects like airports, all kinds of projects which are where people like you are deeply involved.
I think there's been a huge change in the way the entire country has seen a growth in the entire industry, from residentials to commercials to your larger infrastructure projects like airports. When we talk of the residential projects, most of the governments, the state governments, and with the union government, they're trying to get more centralized approach toward the way things are processed in terms of applications, in terms of approvals, and the same is being seen in terms of the larger projects. So early the projects would drag on for years and years. We see the Bandra Wali Sea Link dragged on for good 20 years. But things are changing. The government has actually realized that infrastructure growth is the most important factor if India has to grow forward. And there have been a lot of good changes that the industry has seen, which is helping every user, be it the developer, the guys who build the infrastructure, to the government infrastructure, or the end user, be it a client, be it a layman every day using the infrastructure projects.
Okay, Mr. Kularia, now let's get to the specifics of it. How have companies like yours, basically, which are involved not just in infrastructure, but also in the interiors, how have you been able to reconcile with the growth? Many real estate developers would even say that it's the lack of growth that they are suffering from. So how do you actually look at the industry from your point of view?
In the last 10 years, our industry has seen a good growth. I know there are people who complain that the growth has been slow, but I don't agree with them. The amount of infrastructure development, especially in our industry, that has happened in the last, especially with the new government that came 5 years back, has been phenomenal. One of the key reasons is the transparency in which the approvals are received now is much faster. Mm-hmm. So earlier projects would take 2 or 3 months to start just because of approvals. Now that has cut down to 7 to 10 days, which really helps the end user, our clients, to get their infrastructure ready on time. So it's been a good ride for us also in the last 10 years, where we've expanded across India with the new rules that have come up.
Okay, now in terms of the kind of clients that you meet, both from the urban infrastructure sector and specifically regarding real estate, what kind of various varied kinds of clients do you have? Because real estate, by itself, by the nature of the beast, itself is so different. For instance, you have a fantastic array of services, right from hospitality to commercial spaces to all kinds of industrial spaces also. Now, what kind of, first of all, tell us, what are the major differences in architecture that you get into, the interiors?
So we primarily cater to the design and build sector of commercial offices. So we do end-to-end from a design of a commercial space for a client to executing it to the day the client just comes in and starts working from that office.
Correct.
We're also into hospitality. We're doing a lot of projects for a lot of brands like Marriott and the Accor Group. We're also into residentials. Now all three are different kind of projects. So when you look at a commercial projects, the duration of the project is less. It's a 5 to 6 month duration of the project. When we move to a more of a hospitality, these are long planned projects. So they go on for at least a year, 2 years, from the day the inception is done to the day it's handed over. Residential is subjective, but what we're trying to do is residential also, we're trying to get a residence ready in 2 to 3 months. Earlier people would spend about 9 months to get their house ready, but with the infrastructure that we've been able to put, we're cutting that time to about 2 to 3 months now. So there's a different approach to every project that we do depending on the different kind of service that we have to provide.
Okay, let me ask you a specific question. There are people like developers in Chennai who would say that every cluster would have different kinds of demands. For instance, in Bangalore, the end user, let it be commercial or even housing, when it comes to end user, they would insist on the latest technology, not just in construction, but also in the amenities as well as facilities. Which is because they, at young age, most of them have traveled abroad and they have seen the world. But in Chennai, It's exactly the opposite. Most people would still want the same brick and mortar traditional way of architecture and interiors. What has been your experience in these kinds of varied situations across the verticals that you work on?
You are true. Every region has its own needs and own requirements based on the locality. Like for example, as you said, Bangalore is the Silicon Valley of India. So you have the tech giants up from all over the world working out of Bangalore. Obviously, the people who are working are all engineers. They in today's world is all about artificial intelligence, and we're talking of V-rays. So we're talking a lot of technology in our life at a day-to-day, from the way you operate your gate, the way you operate your lights at your home, the way you park your car. So yes, Bangalore, and plus Bangalore is a little congested city. The population is growing. So the developers, again, as you said, at commercial or at residential, they want to try and include these technologies because that just makes the life easy. And the young generation, the millennials, they are looking at these technologies. Chennai, yes, because it's a little still growing city compared to Bangalore. I mean, Chennai used to be one of the four metropolitan cities of India, but Bangalore has seen a much larger and faster growth in the last 20 years. So Chennai, people still have spaces where they're still okay to have their own houses, which are more secluded, private bungalows. Bangalore is growing too fast, so Bangalore doesn't have the space to still have those bungalows. And when you're doing these gated communities, people are trying to.
But unlike Mumbai, they have a lot of space to expand, isn't it?
Yes, they have a lot of space to expand, but the way Bangalore is growing, it's, I think, according to me, it's the fastest growing industry in terms of real estate across the country. Because Bangalore today is good 25-30% of the entire country's real estate growth. Most offices are in Bangalore, which will lead to more employees will lead to more residential.
Housing
and more residences will lead to advanced infrastructure in terms of roads, in terms of airports and everything. And you'll have to start including these technologies if you want to, because space is something that we cannot create. So technology is going to be the next big thing when it comes to every developer in every industry in this country. Chennai will catch up to it very soon.
I'll come to that in a bit about technology and artificial intelligence. But before that, let me ask you, have you got any anecdotal examples of how things are different in different projects that you work in? Just to, as an example for all real estate and project management viewers.
Yes, for example, when you're doing a project in Delhi, the mindset is different because it's a huge barrier, the way you work in Delhi, the way you work in Bangalore. We still consider Delhi as a political capital of the country. So the mindset is different, the approach to doing project is different. When you come to Bangalore, it's more professional, the approach is different when you're doing a project there. When it comes to Bombay, it's totally different because we may be doing just a 10,000 square feet office for a client, but it's going to be the financial capital of the city, so it's going to be the main key office for the client. So when the client comes out from anywhere out of India, they will land in Mumbai first. So maybe the project is just 10,000 square feet in size, but it will be much more important compared to say 100,000 square feet in Bangalore, because Bangalore would be more of a back office. So the way the project is treated in Bangalore, even though it's huge in size, will be different compared to how we treat it in the city of Mumbai.
Okay, now can you tell us about the artificial intelligence and the new technologies which have come into the interiors business?
20 years back, when spaces were designed, be it an office or residential, people would show sketches and the client would actually approve a lot of things on sketches. 10 years back, everyone got into three-dimensional views. We call it a 3D view, so we would show you views of how the house would look like. With advanced technology, 10 years back, a 3D view would take 2 or 3 days to make one view. Today, it takes about a couple of hours to make. We moved to V-rays, we get those glasses where a person can actually walk through his entire office.
Yep.
And imagine, because see, as an architect, as a contracting company, we can visualize things better than a client can. A client may not be able to do that. So how do you make that experience easier? So we have got softwares where it becomes very easy for a client to actually walk through his entire house, entire office. We show a certain section of carpet and the client maybe doesn't like the color brown and he wants to change it to black or gray. With the touch of a button, he can change the carpet and he can say, oh, okay, I like this carpet. He doesn't like a brand of, say, a TV in the house or any kind of sofa in the residential project that we're doing. With the click of a button, he can change that. So that helps us. With softwares, earlier we would sketch the drawings with hand. I'm talking of 25-30 years back. Then it went to softwares like AutoCAD, where it would take lesser time. We moved to softwares like PIM and Revit, where everything is done on one platform. So starting starting from the design to construction drawing to costing to estimation of material is all done in one software. So the way the projects are now executed is much easier from our perspective when we do it, and from a client's perspective as well, in terms of his visualization of how things will look like.
Okay, Mr. Kularia. Now, you raised a very important point, which I would like to tell you here, that we were talking to a very leading architect in Bangalore, and he was saying, jokingly, of course, that many times what happens is that everything is decided by the project management and the architect and the nitty-gritties of it. But finally, when it comes to the furnishing color and the carpets and the wall color, it's always the developer's wife who has got the final say.
That's true. Like it or not, but women have got, I feel, a better taste of colors and styling. It's a subjective comment, but women are a little boring maybe. But it's a subjective.
There was this carpet tiles manufacturer in Bangalore. I don't know if you know that name of the biggest carpet tiles manufacturer.
Interface?
It's almost like this. Interface. Yes. Interface Flow. So the chief of that company was telling us that in India itself it's a different world altogether. Like people in south need sober colors, but in the north they would go for colorful carpet tiles. So they have to customize it for every region that they work in. Do you find the same kind of temperament?
It's a little subjective, but yes, India as a country, we're very colorful. We've got color in everything that we do. Holi as one of our festivals, which is only about colors.
Right.
Offices abroad, if you go to Europe or America, are very simple. They use just a grey or a beige color, which is now called as the greyish, a combination of grey and beige. And they use white. There are not many colors. But when it comes to India, we love color, and most of the Indian offices, even for the same clients, are more colorful. We have an office in Hong Kong where we're doing a lot of work, and when we started designing, we started giving them an Indian touch to the projects, and some of our clients did not like it and said that, look, we don't like colors, we would love it to be simple. But there were some clients who said, oh wow, this is a new take to it. Across India, we all love colors. I don't think I can differentiate in terms of north or south or any particular city in terms of colors, but India is a country which loves color. So every city, every project we do, clients are actually expecting us to use more color, because colors as a concept is very interesting. Color therapy makes a huge difference. When you see red, you know it's danger. When you see something like blue or yellow, it kind of gives you a freshness to it. So going to a mundane, boring black and white office will not uplift your mood, but going to a very colorful office or a very nicely done house will give you freshness to the world. We're all living in a world which is filled with stress. So a little bit, throw off a color always helps us. Especially with a carpet.
I would like to get into that topic of the kind of varied kind of clients and how do you deal with them. But before that, can you quickly tell us about the kind of package deal that you have for real estate developers? Essentially, when we are essentially for our project management viewers who would be looking for a particular kind of project detailing, what kind of suggestions that you have, or what kind of offerings do you have?
We strongly believe that one size does not fit all philosophy, where every client's need is different, every end user's need is different. So what we generally do is we do a lot of brainstorming with the client, with the end user, in terms of what exactly the client needs. So for example, a lot of times when we're working with developers, we actually understand what is the end use of the developer we're doing with this office space. When we're doing his, say a residential building, the need is different. What is the category of people that the developer is trying to hit to? So there are some spaces which may just get wasted and you not be using it. Why to do that? Today real estate is expensive. Every square inch is important. So for us, it's important to understand the client's use, the need that they need, and then basically develop everything based on that. So it's purely, for example, when we're working for an IT client which is making a BPO office, the functionality is to give them more seats as far as possible. But when you're doing an office, which is for a corporate office, it has to be done with a different mindset. So every project is approached with a different view based on the client's need. We give a lot of ideas to our client, do a lot of brainstorming. Sometimes the client doesn't like us for trying to change their mindset, but then eventually they do agree, because coming from this industry, having a huge experience, we know what is needed and what is not needed.
Okay. You also have now set up a new office for yourself in Mumbai. Now, can you tell us what's the USP of it, or what is the great takeaway that your clients would have if they come here?
When we designed our office, one of the key, the concept that we did our office was, when we go through, is that it's like a child at play. When you take a kid to a museum or a play area, the kid wants to go and sit in every ride, every corner, play with everything that's there. That's how we've tried to do our office. So when our employees come, there are a lot of different areas where an employee can sit and work. There's a lot of flexibility in which they work. If you look at our cafeteria, it's got a lot of natural skylight. It has got natural trees in it.
Correct.
So when you're sitting there, you can still work there. You can actually have a coffee and have a meeting. Our boardroom is actually a container. So that gives a different take to the entire working experience. We've got a lot of natural light flowing in from our entire office. So we generally do not use electricity in the day because of the amount of natural light that we get. And plus, we've actually tried and stick to every idea that we also teach our clients. So today, sit and stand is the new thing. You cannot, ideally you're not supposed to be sitting all the time. So we've got different height of workstations. Some of the meeting rooms have got high tables so that you go and stand there, have a quick chat. We've actually made a gym for ourselves in the office. So after hours, if people want to work out, they can just go and do that. We've tried to do an office where people actually feel engaged and empowered and don't get bored, because as I said, you're working 10 hours, 8 hours a day, and there's a lot of stress on everyone. So whatever little support we can do to them to make their working experience better, we've tried to inculcate that in our entire design.
Okay, Mr. Kularia. Now, can you also tell us about the various policy changes that have taken place in terms of real estate, as well as not just in terms of architecture, but also in terms of interiors, and what kind of changes that you would expect so that things would be better for your industry? There must be so many instances where you suddenly feel that you should have been if this tweak of policy had been there, it would have been made life easier for clients as well as yourself. So what would those changes be that the government should take note of?
See, a couple of large changes that have happened in the last few years, the government has actively worked upon, is to make the working experience and safety of a person working in that atmosphere as the prime important thing. Earlier, there were a lot of loopholes where people would actually kind of manipulate the laws and end up building a building which was much more than the approvals can come through.
Absolutely.
Which would eventually affect
in terms of firefighting. And
then obviously firefighting was a big issue. Like we had a big fire in Mumbai 2 years last year in a restaurant.
Right.
People actually died because the fire exit was not really available.
They put a lot of new policies also on
yes,
that.
for example, in a commercial offices today, there's something called as fire compartmentalization. So if an office is at 30,000 square feet, there's certain square feet that the client, that's the maximum area a client can actually occupy. So which is say around roughly 12,000 square feet. So if an office is 30,000, it gets divided in 3 parts. So each 12,000 square foot is one office in itself. So if something goes wrong in that part of the office, the fire is curtailed in this much office. It does not spread to the rest of the office. Clients have now become even more careful with the fire exit norms. So there's something called as egress capacity. So for example, if the fire escape staircase is 1 meter in width, 100 people can exit. If it's 1.5 meter, 150 people can exit. So if I have a floor plate where I have 500 people or 600 people sitting, and if I don't have adequate number of staircases, we actually push the landlord to build external staircases. So these are things, especially with respect to fire and obviously with respect to entire infrastructure growth, that has really improvised in the last few years. Obviously, India is a big country. We cannot have everyone to have its say on what is needed and how do we do it. But still, the government has been really inclusive and trying to take feedback from a lot of people in the industry.
Last question, 20 seconds. Can you tell us about your future plans, the A&J Group?
We're going at a good 25-30% growth rate at the last 5-6 years. 3 years back, we started our first office internationally in Hong Kong. We have plans to start Singapore soon. In India, we're present in 7 cities. We're trying to build on those 7 cities and grow to probably 10. But the next 2020, we're trying to grow to at least 10 cities.
Okay.
We're about 350 people today.
What are the biggest challenges for growth in India?
I think the closest challenge that I see is we're looking at a stable government for the next 5 years, so that at least that helps the entire industry. And there is still a lot to do on the infrastructure growth. We still need to build on highways where the transportation of material, transportation of manpower can be easily done across India, which the government is still trying to do that. I think growth of those infrastructure is going to be really important for us.
And anything to do with the challenges of getting the right people for your projects?
My dad always used to say, the labor category in India is going to be the most important category in the next 5-10 years. He used to say that in 2005-6, which has become very true today, because labor, the way India is growing overall, if you go to any city, for example, if you're from Chennai and you visit Mumbai after 10 years, you'll suddenly realize that the city has changed. There are new skyscrapers, there are new bridges, there are new roads, new airport. Entire India, there's a constant growth that we're seeing. So labor is going to be a big challenge we have a lot of people who work on our payroll in terms of labor. We have more than 2,500-3,000 people.
So talent is a problem?
Talent is always going to be a problem because Indian talent is now getting recognition everywhere. So a lot of engineers are getting attracted to the Western countries. A lot of labor are getting attracted to the Gulf countries also. So holding on to our talent is going to be really important for us.
Holding on to your talent. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much. Thanks.